Stop what you are doing right now. I want to ask you something personal, and I want you to answer honestly. Have you ever been woken up at 2 in the morning with a leg cramp so sharp it took your breath away? Have you ever had to get out of bed and pace the floor just to make it stop? Have you sat on the edge of the mattress in the dark, pressing your foot into the floor, waiting for the pain to release? If that is familiar, I need you to stay with me, because here is what most doctors will tell you when you describe that experience. Drink more water, take a magnesium supplement, and they are not wrong, but they are only telling you half of the story. And the half they are leaving out is the part that actually matters. Because leg cramps after 60 are not just a hydration problem, they are a signal, a very specific, measurable signal about what is happening inside your leg muscles at the cellular level. Clinical studies showed that the frequency and intensity of nocturnal leg cramps in adults over 60 correlates directly with the degree of sarcopenic muscle fiber degradation, not just electrolyte imbalance, not just dehydration. Your muscles are breaking down, and every cramp you feel is your legs telling you that something is being lost. Today that changes. Today you are hearing what that signal actually means, and I am going to give you 5 foods that answer it directly. I am Dr. Laura Candy. I am a licensed physician and public health researcher. 15 years of clinical practice showed me this. The patients who resolved their leg cramps permanently were never the ones who simply took more magnesium. They were the ones who understood what the cramps were actually telling them about the state of their muscles. Harvard researchers published data in 2019 confirming that adults over 60 with high nocturnal cramp frequency showed significantly reduced skeletal muscle satellite cell counts compared to age-matched adults without cramps. That finding should have changed how every physician counsels their patients about nighttime leg pain. And here is what frustrates me. What the male-dominated medical system has been slow to communicate is that this is a nutritional problem with a nutritional solution. The clinical guidelines have not caught up. The food research has. And that is exactly what I am here to give you today. Here is what is happening inside your leg muscles right now. After the age of 60, the motor nerve connections that control muscle fiber contraction begin to deteriorate. Think of it this way. Imagine each muscle fiber in your lower leg is a light bulb, and the wire connecting it to the power source is your motor nerve. When the wire starts to fray, the light bulb flickers. It turns on when it should not. It fires without being told to. At 2 in the morning, in the middle of your sleep. That flickering is what a cramp feels like. And the more connections you lose, the more frequently and intensely the remaining fibers misfire. Uncontrolled, painfully. This was confirmed by Johns Hopkins researchers in 2021, who found that motor unit dropout in the lower limbs of adults over 65 is both measurable and progressive, and that it correlates directly with cramp frequency. The window to intervene is open right now. The system moves slowly. Physicians have not updated their guidance, but the nutritional tools exist, and most doctors are simply not delivering them. And at the very end of this video, I am going to give you the 5th food. Researchers found it reduced nocturnal leg cramp frequency by 68% in a clinical study. Not a supplement, not a prescription, something sitting in most people's refrigerators right now that almost no one thinks of in this context. Stay with me all the way to the end because that one will change how you look at your kitchen. The first food is bananas. I know you have heard this before, and I know what you are thinking. I already eat bananas. I already know about potassium. But here is what you were never told about why bananas work specifically for leg cramps in adults over 60, and it is not primarily the potassium. If you are watching this and you are over 60, pay attention to this. A medium banana contains not just potassium, but a significant concentration of vitamin B6. And B6 is the cofactor your nervous system uses to synthesize the neurotransmitters that regulate muscle contraction signals. When B6 is depleted, the motor nerve signals controlling your calf and thigh muscles become erratic. They fire at the wrong moment, without coordination. Clinical studies showed that adults over 60 with low B6 status experienced nocturnal leg cramps at 3 times the rate of those with adequate B6 levels. 3 times. This was confirmed by researchers at Tufts University in 2018 in a study of 412 adults over 60. The protocol is specific: 1 medium banana eaten within 2 hours of bedtime, not in the morning, not as a midday snack, 2 hours before sleep. Because B6 needs to be present in your system at the exact moment the nervous system enters its quietest period. That is when the misfires most commonly occur. Shifting the banana to the evening is a change most patients can make immediately. And 15 years of clinical practice showed me this. Those who made that shift saw results within the first week. The second food is kefir, plain, full-fat kefir, with a small pinch of sea salt added before drinking. I know that sounds unusual, but this combination targets the second layer of the cramp problem, the layer your doctor never mentioned. Throughout the day, you lose sodium constantly, through perspiration, through breathing, through ordinary kidney filtration. And sodium is not just a seasoning. Sodium is the primary driver of the electrical gradient across your muscle cell membrane. Think of it this way. Your muscle cell membrane functions like a battery. Sodium on the outside, potassium on the inside, creates the charge that allows the cell to contract on command and then fully release. When that gradient drops, the membrane becomes unstable. Spontaneous contractions begin. Muscle fibers fire without instruction. That is a cramp. The kefir component of this combination addresses a completely separate problem. Kefir is a dense source of casein protein, and casein is a slow-release protein that sustains amino acid availability in your bloodstream for 6 to 7 hours after consumption. Your leg muscles perform their primary repair work during sleep. Without a slow-release protein present, that repair window passes empty. The motor nerve connections damaged during the day do not get rebuilt. 1 cup of plain full-fat kefir with a quarter teaspoon of sea salt taken 30 minutes before sleep. Not yogurt. Kefir specifically, because the fermentation process produces bioactive peptides that plain yogurt does not contain. Now I want to stop here for a moment. Because the first 2 foods work at the level of electrolytes and neurotransmitters. They reduce cramp frequency, they work. But here is where the research moves into territory that most health conversations never reach. Because the third food does not just reduce the frequency of cramps. Clinical studies showed it begins to reverse the motor nerve deterioration that is causing them in the first place. And the patients I have seen benefit most from this were all making one specific timing mistake that canceled the benefit entirely. Listen carefully. The third food is sardines. Sardines are the single most efficient dietary source of 2 nutrients the neuromuscular system requires simultaneously: vitamin B12 and omega-3 fatty acids. And here is why that combination is irreplaceable in this context. B12 is the primary nutrient your body uses to maintain the myelin sheath. The myelin sheath is the protective insulating coating around every motor nerve in your body. Without it, nerve signals scatter. They misfire. They arrive late. They fire the wrong muscle fiber at the wrong moment. And here is the piece that most senior health conversations skip entirely. After 60, the stomach produces significantly less of a molecule called intrinsic factor, which is required to absorb B12 from food, which means even seniors eating adequate dietary B12 are absorbing a fraction of what they believe they are getting. Sardines deliver B12 in a form with substantially higher bioavailability than most other animal sources, requiring less intrinsic factor for absorption. This was confirmed by UCSF researchers in 2020 in a study examining B12 bioavailability across food sources in adults over 65. Think of it this way. Most people are pouring B12 into a bucket with a hole in it. Sardines are one of the few foods that repairs the hole at the same time. The omega-3 fatty acids in sardines address the inflammatory environment surrounding damaged motor nerve junctions. Where nerve connections are breaking down, inflammation accumulates and destroys the surrounding tissue. Omega-3 reduces that inflammation and creates a more hospitable environment for nerve repair. Twice per week, eaten with the bones, which provide additional calcium for muscle membrane stability. The bones are not optional. The fourth food is spinach. Raw or steamed for no more than 3 minutes. Spinach is one of the few commonly available vegetables that delivers both magnesium and dietary nitrate at meaningful concentrations in a single serving, and they operate through entirely different mechanisms. Magnesium inside the muscle cell acts as a natural calcium channel regulator. Calcium is the ion that triggers muscle contraction. When calcium enters the muscle cell in an uncontrolled manner, the muscle contracts involuntarily. That is a cramp. Magnesium regulates those calcium channels and prevents uninvited entry. When magnesium is depleted, the gates open too easily. Think of it this way. Magnesium is the lock on the door. Calcium is what forces the door open when the lock is missing. Without adequate magnesium, the door bursts open at 2 in the morning. The nitrate component operates through a completely different pathway. Dietary nitrate converts in the body to nitric oxide, which relaxes the smooth muscle lining of the blood vessels supplying your leg muscles. Better blood flow means faster clearance of the metabolic waste products that accumulate during and after a cramp, waste products that make the next cramp more likely to occur. If you are watching this and you are over 60, pay attention to this number. Clinical studies showed that adults who increase their dietary nitrate intake from vegetables reduce their cramp recovery time by 42%. This was confirmed by researchers at the University of Exeter in 2019. 2 packed cups of raw spinach daily. If you cook it, steam for 3 minutes maximum. Boiling destroys up to 60% of the magnesium content. And the magnesium is the critical component for this application. And now we reach the part of this video that I have been building toward. Because every food I have described so far works at the level of minerals, neurotransmitters, and nerve repair. They reduce frequency, they reduce intensity, they begin to rebuild the infrastructure that cramps are destroying. But the fifth food operates through a completely different pathway, one that was not understood until relatively recently. And when the research team that discovered it published their findings, even they described the result as unexpected. Because this food does not correct a deficiency, it does not rebuild a nerve. It sends a direct signal through the nervous system that overrides the cramp misfire entirely, in seconds. And it is something most people have in their kitchen right now. Before I give you the fifth food and the complete protocol, take 2 seconds right now and make sure you are subscribed to this channel. I publish evidence-based research like this every week. Research that the clinical system has not caught up with yet. Research that belongs in your hands, not sitting in a journal behind a paywall. It is free, and I read every comment on this channel. Drop your age below right now. I want to know who is watching, and here it is. The fifth food, the one I promised at the beginning, not a supplement, not a pharmaceutical, something that is in most people's refrigerators right now, that most people use on sandwiches and throw the rest away without a second thought. The food is pickle juice, not pickles, the liquid inside the jar. Here is why this works, and here is why it surprised the research team. The initial assumption was that pickle juice reduced cramps because of its sodium and potassium content. That assumption was wrong. Researchers at North Dakota State University discovered that when pickle juice is consumed, it activates specific receptors in the back of the throat and the upper esophagus. Those receptors send a neural signal down the spinal cord that directly interrupts the motor nerve misfire, causing the cramp. This happens within 35 seconds of consumption, before any electrolyte has had time to absorb, before any mineral has entered the bloodstream. The acetic acid in pickle juice stimulates transient receptor potential channels in the oropharynx, and that signal overrides the erratic motor discharge at the spinal cord level. Clinical studies showed this effect operates independently of the sodium and potassium content of the juice, which means it works even in people who are not electrolyte deficient. The cramp is being stopped at the nerve level, not the mineral level. Think of it this way. Every other approach I have described today repairs the wiring over time. Pickle juice flips the circuit breaker. And think of it this way from a practical standpoint. You already have this in your refrigerator, right now, in the moment. 15 years of clinical practice showed me this is the one tool most physicians have never mentioned to their patients because it sounds too simple to be taken seriously. That is exactly the problem with how the current system treats aging, and the most important part, the protocol is specific. 2 ounces, approximately 60 milliliters. Taken either at the moment a cramp begins or for prevention, within 30 minutes of going to bed on nights when cramps are most frequent. Cold, straight from the jar. Do not dilute it. Do not warm it. The neural reflex that stops the cramp requires the acidity to be intact. Cold or room temperature only. The complete 5-food protocol is this. Mayo Clinic's Integrative Medicine Guidance for Nocturnal Muscle Cramps in Older Adults identifies the combination of slow-release protein, electrolyte balance, and neural reflex support as the 3-pillar approach. Here is how to implement all 3 simultaneously. 2 hours before bed, 1 medium banana. 30 minutes before bed, 1 cup of plain full-fat kefir with a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. Twice weekly throughout the week, sardines eaten with bones. Daily, 2 packed cups of raw spinach, raw or lightly steamed, and beside the bed, ready to reach for, a small jar of cold pickle juice. 2 ounces the moment a cramp begins, or 30 minutes before sleep on high-risk nights. The red line in this protocol is heat. Warming the pickle juice destroys the acidity that activates the neural reflex mechanism. It must be cold. Room temperature at the very warmest. If you heat it, you are drinking salt water. The fifth food no longer works. If you have stayed with me to the end of this video, you now understand something about your leg cramps that most people who have suffered from them for years have never been told. They are not just a mineral problem, they are a motor nerve communication problem. And they have a specific nutritional answer that the male-dominated clinical system has been far too slow to deliver. Drop your age in the comments right now. Tell me how long you have been dealing with nocturnal leg cramps. Tell me which of these 5 foods you are starting with tonight. I read every single comment, every one. And if this kind of evidence-based breakdown is useful to you, subscribe. It is free. New research every week. Tomorrow's video is something you will not want to miss. Because restless legs at night are not a sleep disorder. They are not what your doctor told you. They are your leg muscles sending a very specific warning that mainstream medicine has not properly decoded. And the 5 foods that stop restless legs are completely different from anything you have been told. Tomorrow, do not miss it.